Our next guest on the Any Given Run Day podcast is a strength and conditioning coach who has ran 54 marathons, including 10 marathons in 10 days around a track for Aware Ireland. He is the founder of Performance Stock, has ran 247 kilometres in 72 hours and cycled 200 kilometres from Cork to Wicklow on a BMX. David O'Connor, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
Hey lads, thanks very much for having us. Absolute pleasure. And thanks
There's
for
no
that
heating on in the
introduction.
house. No heating on in the house, David. Why are you
I
getting
know,
extra hot? What's going
I'm in the office here, lads. That's which is me Volkswagen Golf. This is
I'm on about, forget about the video. People can't see that. You never seem to spend time at home because you're constantly running marathons,
yeah.
cycling the length of the country in a BMX. Where I suppose as we start every episode, we'll do this one no different, David. Where did all this start for you? How did you get involved in sport? And we'll move on to where you are now.
Yeah, I can tell you, like what you've listed off there, like it's my life doesn't look like that all the time. Albeit I have the hips to prove it, but yeah, listen, probably like most people, grew up in Dublin, as you can probably tell by the accents. My dad,
No
no,
way.
actually, I've moved. I'm now a loud man, for my sins. But yeah, listen, my dad was an absolute baller, to be honest with you. There was a mix up in the genes somewhere, lads. But he, obviously, his love of sport was kind of, I suppose, just for myself. I looked up to him, started playing football at a young age. And I actually I trained with him. We were still playing, and I ended up training with him when I was about 13, 14 with his team, which I thought, like, I'll show these lads. Like, I got absolutely kicked around. Like, it was, you can imagine, like, just, it was certainly put into place at a young age. But look, one thing I took from that, seeing me dad kind of playing, I loved, like you're going training with a team. It was Tuesday night in winter. You had the generation, the generator with the floodlights, like a group of 30 lads. The cones were down, everything was structured, and it was just, I remember like, even being, as I said, like 13, 14, growing that little bit older, like there was a buzz off that. Like I really loved it. I loved that structure and the energy. And yeah, I think that's where I got the love of it, the love of training, and the appreciation for it as well. And my dad always said that, like, it was little things, like just make sure you're washing your boots on a Saturday night. Always make sure you say thanks to your coach, things like that, little small things, like, not to forget, like. So I think that's probably where the love started. The running piece it's a strange one. Like, the running piece came from a quite unusual sort of experience, because what you've kind of mentioned at the start there, Sean, all that work I do for kind of charity with Aware, I have done. I do with just probably like so many people. Like, I've had sort of deep rooted kind of mental health issues myself, around, which sort of surfaced kind of throughout that period, early teens, just from being bullied in school. And I was also mugged. I had a syringe held up to my neck. I was mugged on the street. So at the time, it was incredibly traumatic. What it tells me now is that was somebody in a really messed up way doing their best to make their life better because they wanted something off me. I think logic would tell me he was never going to use that hit on me. But as a 14-year-old, I obviously didn't understand that. I was absolutely terrified. So I think one of those things, the bullying or that incident, is probably enough for anybody kind of at that age to sort of upset you and leave a few emotional scars. But being picked on because of what you look like, and it was because I was a little bit chubby, when I look back, I was probably no worse or, no bigger than anybody else in my class. But what it came down to, I decided one day I was so sick of it. I was like, I had asked my mum to buy me Slim Fast, which is like incredible. Like, for a 14, 15-year-old, we having that in your mind because you'd seen it on an ad, and I was sick of how this was people picking on you, but get us some Slim Fast, will you? So I decided one day, and I know this is quite heavy, lads, but there is a bit of comic value in this.
I'm sorry,
I,
those who can't see me, I'm laughing. I haven't heard
yeah,
Slim Fast in about 15 years. This is brilliant.
I know, I'm showing my age there, Jesus.
Yeah, as a Luke could
But
say, and 2 tubs of Slim Fast there, will
yeah,
you?
I don't even think that's available anymore. My God. But I decided, I said, right, feck that. I'd read somewhere, like, if you run, you can lose weight. So I remember we had a half day from school on a Wednesday, and I decided, right, I'm going to go for a run. But what I'll do is, I obviously don't want anyone to see me. So I'm going to run in a pair of jeans. Because,
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I'm going to say, like, if anybody sees me, sorry, I can't stop because I'm running for a
Like,
bus to go to town. And look, I am laughing, but there's obviously quite a sadness to that. Like,
yeah.
but I went in my jeans, and I did about 15 minutes, and heart was pounding. I remember being terrified. Oh, please don't let anybody see me. Please don't let anyone see me. Like, and anyway, I did it. Did a bit of a run, came back, and I kind of just a reflective piece, I suppose. I was like, I actually really enjoyed that. And no joke, since then, like, running has been like an integral part of my life. And the biggest thing for me was it was always for me head. It was never, and it's never been about times, speed, any of that. It's always been a practice I've done for me head. And I'm 42 now, so like I've never owned a watch for me run. Even when I run marathons or anything, I don't wear a watch. I just keep it simple. I keep it about me head. And that's what works for me. So look, naturally from you're going back 30 odd years here, like it was built up. I got involved when I got interested in it, obviously playing football. I did athletics then in school. I got into that a little bit.
Can I just cut across to dive into that a bit longer? To go from the jeans to going, I really enjoyed this. How did you feel then about trying it for the second time? Was there still that anxiety about stepping outside? Did you say, actually, do you know what? I actually wasn't so bad. I'll do this in shorts the next time, or how did you transition? Because to go from that, as you're about to say, athletics clubs and stuff is a big step, because even the anxiety of going as a young individual or as a
Mm.
parent with young teens who are probably looking at this phase, to go from that step as a parent. So go in your parents' shoes. He wants me to buy him Slim Fast, and he's chasing buses in his jeans. It's funny now
Mm.
that we can say it because you talked about it, but there was a serious step that would have had to happen in your life. What was that?
Yeah.
And what was it like?
I probably didn't have much clarity on it at the time. But I mentioned there about that kind of attack I went under with that chap. But when I look at it now, I'm pretty confident again. It was a step to try and make me feel better about myself. And as a result, it did make me feel better about myself. Um, and yeah, look, thankfully, the next time I went, I did wear shorts. But you're right. I mean, and going back there, it certainly wasn't a time where just going out for a run on your own was all that common. I'm very lucky kind of where I grew up is like near St. Anne's Park and Raheny down near the seafront. And that always interested me because I remember I used to go down I'd run as far as the wooden bridge in Clontarf and then go home then up through Colester and that. And I remember then kind of the interest for me, the excitement was like, geez, could I go a bit further, Could I go down? Maybe next time I go down as far as the sand dunes. And then I'll go over it. So I think that was an interest to me. That was the challenge, I suppose, that I recognised in it. But look, I think it's probably as simple as saying it did make me feel better about myself. And again, without realising, it was probably just something quite singular that I was doing for me without kind of, long before social media and everything else. Like I was just doing something quietly for myself. It started off for the wrong reasons, but look, like I said, it's been an absolutely massive part of my life since and always will be.
You have a great quote on your Instagram. It was like, when you run for the head, you can never lose. And it makes sense now when you haven't got to watch or anything there. Because even going back and like you're doing a double marathon every year, and not one post is about, well, this time compared to this year, that. It's just the experiences of running through it. And 1 year it's coming back from injury and it's hugging everyone all the way through. And 1 minute is just going to enjoy it. But it's never really the PB and seeing the pace and stuff like that. That's just not what you do.
No, it's not. Listen, I tell you, lads, I like, if you're waiting for me at the end, wear your jacket. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a quick one. Like I've put in a shift for a few decent marathons, but I don't care. Like last year, I think it was something like just close to 5 hours last year, but I was having a ball. I think I don't know if that was the post you were referring to, but like the amount of people I met, like I had to stop every 10 minutes just chatting to people, and like I said, I didn't care. Like it was just like, oh, just go and do it. But look, Dublin is Jesus. It's special. It's it's I don't know. It's something about it. I feel like it's become almost. It's like this lovely thing I do every year to close out the year, close out this body of work, like spiritually and kind of emotionally and everything else. It's a decent time of year, to be fair, for the most part. Last year was actually horrendous weather-wise. But,
Yeah.
in the main, to be fair, over the past couple of years, there's been some really nice afternoons and it's great. But the atmosphere the whole way around it's incredible. It's hard to
Special.
explain to people. Like I'd have in my head, like someone went shopping this week and in their mind they were like, we better get a few extra boxes of Jaffa cakes because the marathon's on, And when you think, particularly for these people, like their driveways are being blocked, their road, you can't go anywhere. Like, so, I mean, you have to appreciate that. But yeah, I think anybody who's done it or anybody who's even gone in to, see at the end or just experience that, it's it's superb. It really is. Like, and thankfully I got in for next year somehow.
Oh, brilliant! Same.
Yeah, I think I'm running on my own. I don't think I don't know anyone else who's gotten in. I don't know how I swung that one, but I'm delighted because, oh Jesus, I have serious FOMO.
I was afraid to ask that question or even lead down that road in case you didn't get in for that. But David, how, like, we talk about the crowds there and just the generosity of people and all the rest, and you're going through the streets, and the one thing about Dublin is that each part is, for the most part, we always joke, myself and Eric, like mile 13 to 20, there's not much going on there. Great crowds, but like it seems the same compared to like the Phoenix Park, Castleknock, and all these different areas. But how do you go from that to running around the track to hit a marathon? And then the next day doing the same again, and then the same again, and keep that going for 10 days like you did there for that. Where did that come about? I know you did it for Where Ireland, but how did that idea pop into your head? And how was that to do that continuously for 10 days as opposed to a longer loop?
Yeah, I this has only come up because it's our running podcast. It's usually, so I've learned to park this because it's a bit like, that episode of Simpsons with Bart. So I didn't do it. So that's me little party piece because he's still going on about that bleeding 10 marathons. So I try not to bring it up, but obviously within the context, it probably is quite relevant. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I said, I think I mentioned there, like the speed piece was never quite me vibe. Where that came from, probably a lot of people. I'd read a lot of really good kind of, ultra marathon memoirs, Dean Canarze's, Scott Jurek, and then obviously Born to Run, which so many people have read. And I think just that capability, like, and recognizing half of that, that's not even physical. That's something deeper. And sort of always had in my head as, we're so much, I always say, like, we're capable of doing so much more than we give ourselves credit for. Like, and I probably confidence wise, I never really believed that. But where that came out of two things, as I got a bit more confident in me running, had experience, obviously, a couple of marathons, a couple of trail marathons. I always had in my head, I want to do something, make some kind of impact, raise some money for, different mental health charities around Ireland. And where I came out of was watching the Rio Olympics, so 2016. Mick Clotty was running, who I'm sure you know, are very familiar with. Um, so Mick is someone I've just so much respect for. He grew up near me, went to my same school. I know him well. He's Jesus, lads, he's absolutely gorgeous to watch running. Like that fabulous head of hair and all. He's he's
The invert
hypnotizing.
of Sean.
he's 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 hypnotizing, but I met just kind of obviously with him there, like it was incredible watching someone from down the road. And then you start thinking, I'm like, Jesus, like, how is, if he's in the Olympics, like, what isn't that 10 more people here in the Olympics? You start overthinking everything. But anyway, from really getting into watching Rio, I just genuinely had this moment watching one of the track races where I was like, Jesus, I wonder has anybody ever done a marathon on a running track? And genuinely, that was the seed. It was nothing to do with 10. That was the seed. And it sort of kept coming back to me. And I have no idea how I got the 10, lads. One probably would have been enough. But no, where 10 came from was the 1 symbolises the individual and the 0 symbolises the track. And what we were trying to achieve with it was we wanted to kind of symbolise this kind of metaphor for this kind of monotony, this never-ending feeling, this repetition that you'd associate with kind of low mood, with depression, anxiety. And the flip to it was, well, if you surround yourself with the right people, with the right mindset, you can overcome that. So that was the setup. That's what we pushed. And I say we, lads, because you don't do something like that on your own. You need a lot of support from family, from friends. And probably initially I had in my head, oh yeah, like I'm going to need a lot of music here. Like I'm going to be on my own, baiting around this track. Like no joke, lads, I over 10 days, I wasn't alone once. Like it was incredible. My dad described it as, he says, like field of dreams, if you build it, they will come, like, and it was, honestly, it was the most special 10 days of my life. It really was. Every time I came around, like the arc, you'd look up and see someone coming through the gate. Some friend you grew up with, some ex-girlfriend with a buggy. No, it's like honestly, there was so many people. I was just like, Jesus, how did he know about this? And it really was. It was incredible. And the beauty of it was, like we mentioned there, it was nothing to do with watches or time, and it was you were running and people were chatting and they were chatting to strangers. They were chatting to me. Everybody was being open. It really was incredible. And what's absolutely mad about this, lads, I didn't even get a blister. It was crazy.
When you're looking at a scale of something that big, did you know it was 10 before? Or why 10? Or are you, when you look at things going forward, do you think maybe I could have done another 10, 15, 20? There's some people running the length of Ireland. Does that kind of thing interest you, having completed something like that?
No, I think the biggest thing with the couple that you've mentioned, a few things there, like, and anything I've done, I've genuinely, I tried to do it with sincerity and meaning rather than, oh yeah, I'll do that. That'll get me a few likes. And I've given you kind of the metaphor there behind the 10 and 10. Like that was in my heart doing that, what it was for, everything I'd been through. And as that grew kind of very organically over those 10 days, like you sort of knew it was like, this is working. This people get it. So certainly, like as it went on, and look, you've mentioned a few other events there that were a lot more low key, to be honest with you. But like, there's things like you say, there's incredible challenges that I'm very happy to just watch from a distance. Like, but I'd be very cautious just from my own mindset. Like, I think if you do sort of commit to things for the wrong reasons, it won't work out. I don't think it will, and you'll probably end up getting more injured. And pushing yourself for the wrong reasons. I think like your ladder is up against the wrong wall there. So look, touch wood, I think I've gotten it right. I've put my body through the mill. It's raised a lot of money for different charities, and I'm very proud, particularly with Aware, the ambassador work I've done for them. And I'm very proud of what it all achieved, because like I'm trying to summarize it here for you guys, like, but genuinely, it's very difficult to sort of to hand that emotion to someone of what I felt and what the people who were with me felt, because it really was like, it was beautiful. And I remember driving around. I was going up to the Alta every morning and driving up. Have an automatic car, which was fucking marvelous.
That was LC.
No need to hit the clutch. But I remember kind of going around that arc where you've got the M50 and then the M1. And the M50 is absolutely chock-a-block, like, and I'm wheeling away from that to go up, no traffic. And I remember genuinely every morning thinking, like, in a week and a half, I'm back sitting in that. Like, this is gone. So I remember, like, really driving it in, like, no matter how this goes, just enjoy it, embrace it, and enjoy every bit of it. And sometimes it's hard for people to believe when I'm telling that, but like, genuinely, the 10 days they were incredible. Honestly, the most incredible 10 days of my life. And it was made by people. That's the beauty of it. It was conveyor belt of people that made that. Everybody created the energy together.
I know you say you're not doing it for likes, and I genuinely do believe you. I have to ask though, is there ever a feeling of, because you said that was a magical 10 days, you've done things since. Is there any time your mind wanders and even like for raising money for Aware, like, oh, do I have to go up to the next challenge? Someone keeps coming up to me and mentioning that 10 marathons in 10 days. Do I have to come up with something next? Like, what's next? What's the next thing to chase that thing? Do you ever find yourself lost in that?
Yeah, you have to be careful with it, definitely. Because what happens is your whole identity is shaped around physical challenges, and like, I don't want that. Like, Jesus, I've been in a wheelchair, but I'm 50. Like, so absolutely, you have to be so careful. And definitely, I had a bit of that where I was like, oh shit, I better do something. And then like that, we probably again being a little bit more, I suppose, well, I've always had quite strong self-awareness, like, but maybe just being a little bit more self-assured of myself, where you're like, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. And it goes back to what we spoke about near the start there, like, where it's just, right, why am I getting wrapped up in this? Reel back. Why do I run? I do it from my head. So, I don't have to run from the North Pole to the South Pole just to, like, so. Yeah, look, it was an incredible period in my life. I don't know. Listen, I love the marathons, as I said, the mountain runs and that. Nothing's inspired me personally in terms of saying, right, like Rocky, there's still something in the basement.
Yeah.
No, listen, I think, look, I've enough going on, to be honest. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I feel good. I feel fresh. And like I say, I certainly wouldn't jump to just do something just for the sake of it.
David, I do want to get back to that BMX, because I grew up with a blue BMX, and every kid around me had the gears. And actually, no, I'm getting into this now because I'm starting the story. Like, the people around me had all the gears and stuff, and I was the slowest kid in the block, because that BMX, people liked to doing wheelies and different things and that, and it was durable as hell, but it wasn't fast. Why the BMX from Cork to Wicklow?
Yeah, again, I go back about that symbolism. Genuinely, that was a bit of fun. That was just, I remember when I was younger, and everybody probably did this. I don't know what we got in our heads, like a group. Like, we all had bikes, obviously, and we decided, right, lads, let's go on an adventure.
This sounds like everyone at John's races.
Like Lord of the Rings, isn't it? We're going on an adventure. But I think, I'd say we got as far as Fairview. Obviously all the parents were out looking for us and what's going on here, but like, there was such a thrill in that, like, you'd gone further than you were supposed to go. And that's what was in my head with that. It was like a little bit of careless freedom. Let's just see how this goes. So yeah, just said, listen, we'll do it on a BMX for a bit of crack, like. I genuinely, like, no joke, we started in, I think it was, we're down to Cork. It was right on the edge of Cork and Waterford. So, mate, I think it was Dungarvan. I'm not sure that sounds right. Anyway, in
Yeah,
my
well,
head,
close
I was
enough. Yeah.
like, if we get an hour or two out of this, like, it'll be still a bit of crack. 'Cause genuinely, I didn't think the bike could last. Because it was a €50 BMX, like. It was mad, like, so,
Did you sit down much, or was it all standing?
it was quite mixed. I'd found, I can't, do you know what? I remember, like, I wasn't in any pain or anything. I was comfortable enough. But we got with a couple of punctures. My mate was with me, and, like, it was probably worse for her because, like, she was just driving to the next town, waiting for me, dishing out a drink, pumping up the tires, going again. Like, so, like, say she was bored out of her mind. It was, we did well. We did a couple of punctures and that along the way. There was a couple of nice parts. Like, it covered the Waterford Greenway and that, like, that was lovely. So I got to see, like,
Mm.
some of the scenery was unbelievable. God, if we'd trying to say, oh, sorry, Les, this was going off memory. I think we had started, we left the house, drove down to Cork at like 4 in the morning. So whatever, got there at 7, started cycling, made it to about 3 or 4 in the morning, just outside Blessington, and the back wheel buckled.
Jeez. And that was
And
it.
sorry, when I think about it, like, but I'm not joking. Like, I think I was relieved at that stage. I was like, oh. But you know what? It's funny. It's like you're saying about that kind of sense of achievement, and you have to win. Like,
Mm.
there was no, oh no, I failed. We didn't make it to Dublin. It was just like, that was mental. Oh, like, it didn't matter that I didn't make it back to Dublin. We just done like 24 hours, like, and do you know what's funny? I remember at the point it started to go. I think it was between Blessington and Baltinglass. And there's a patch of road there, like, with no lights. Now, I was lit up like a Christmas tree, but it was the first time I remember in the whole kind of day, I started to get a bit of fear. And genuinely, just because it was so dark, and I was like, if someone takes a corner, you know, a
Jeez,
very
yeah.
realistic fear, like, and I remember just thinking, Jesus, is this, is there actually a point to
Is it
going
worth
on
it?
here? And like that, the
Yeah.
wheel went then. So there probably was a sense of relief. But like I said, that was just done for a bit of crack. Like, it was, when I
I
think
love it.
about it, like,
Did you bring your bike back and get a refund for the 50 quid?
like, you know what? Actually, I
I
got the
think
wheel.
that's what
We
we
did. I got the wheel fixed, and I gave the bike to my nephew. Actually, so he
Bit
did
of wear
well
and
out of
tear
it.
on it.
He did well out of it. But yeah, listen, it was a bit of fun. It was quite low key, like, it was a good laugh, in fairness, like. But no, that's done. A race or a mountain bike next. It was a good laugh, though, in fairness.
Completely switching gears here, David, because you train high level athletes and you do a lot of great things with them. You work with Shelburne, different GA athletes, athletics, and all the rest. And one of the lines on your website is you help athletes improve their running form and become physically and mentally stronger. We've touched a fair bit on the mentally side of it. In terms of running form and stuff, what are the common things you see for people that need to be improved on, that you're like, this is what really you need, that the gym and stuff helps people with?
Yeah, so it's quite broad. Like, I would have quite a mix of athletes, but I think, look, whether it's recreational or right up to kind of professional, I always say this to people: everybody has something that they can kind of work on, and that could be right down to just an imbalance between your left and right hip. Um, I think I tell you where I'll start. I'll start with youth athletes, right? Because
Mm.
I think there's an awful lot of pressure on we'll say young footballers, because probably most of my business is footballers. And it's almost, they'll come to me, and it's like at the first session, it's like, am I going to be lightning quick at the end of this, And but it's not even an arrogance. It's like a fear. It's like, oh, I have to go back to my team because my manager says I need to be quicker. Which is it's incredibly unfair, you know. And
Mm.
the kind of message I give to younger athletes is like, we're joking about it there. Like I say, like, look, I'm in my 40s. I'm still trying to, you know, better myself at running or enjoy me. You know, I said, you're going to be doing this for the next 15, 20 years. Like, don't be pressuring yourself for the next 45 minutes or the next two,
Mm.
3 weeks.
When you go back to then you as a teen, when people were kind of bullying you and stuff, kids have a lot of access, which in a good way, we always say, if you can see, you can be, you know. So
Yes.
to see what can be, they can set their ceiling a good bit higher and hopefully burst through it. But is there a double-edged sword that you've just kind of touched on there, that I'm not as fast as, you know, and the negative side of it?
Yeah, it's probably, in my opinion, I think it's a bit of misinformation. And it's, I suppose, what we're all maybe a bit guilty of in team sport, particularly, is just the kind of the lexicon, the language that we use. And that maybe when a coach or a parent does say, you know, you need to get faster, it's with good intentions. But like, as you
Yeah,
guys know,
yeah, yeah.
that could mean anything. Is that
Mm.
you need to get faster because you're running against Sean and he's beating you in training, when in truth, you're not going to be playing against Sean on a Saturday. Is
Yeah.
it
Mm.
you need to be quicker at turning and accelerating, you need to be quicker at change of direction, you need to be quicker at 40 meters. It's such a large umbrella.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and do with people. And like I say, that's whatever level you're at, you're trying to break it down bit by bit and saying, like, look, we're going to trash this out for 4 weeks and give you confidence, get you more aware of your movement, obviously build the strength, push when we can. Can't always do it in season. You have to be really, really careful because we don't overcook anybody. But I think just that is why I lead with the mental piece more so, is that, like, look, you're doing a lot. And particularly say, like, I had to say to people, like, I'm taking sessions at 4 o'clock on a Friday, say. Like, it's 4 o'clock on a Friday. You're here. You don't.
What are you doing here?
You know, but genuinely, like, yeah, I should be at home. But like,
Terrible
you're
business
supposed to
model,
be
but
up.
you're asking them what they're doing here.
But you know, you're like, you're here doing extras on your own back. You don't have to be here. So, like, give yourself some bloody credit. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm probably relating that more to the youth athletes that I'm very lucky to work with. I think when you do get kind of up to higher levels, it probably does get a little bit more specific. And in most cases like that, it could be more, I've been carrying this niggle for 5 years now. Can we correct
Mm.
that? And then work on your form and give you a little bit of a spring that you can take back then with your team. Everybody is different. It's a bit of a politician's answer, I suppose. But at the same time, everybody can kind of benefit from the basics. And that's scaling right back to just good form in your mechanics. And you can teach that very, very simply through plyometrics, A-skips. You're just teaching people to use the hip, the knee, the ankle, you know, stacking your body, getting them thinking about the position. Deceleration, particularly in team sport, is probably one of the most under-coached areas, particularly with female athletes. I have a lot of female athletes. If you look at, you know, the kind of the issue around ACL injuries,
Mm.
the non-contact piece is generally a single leg sort of jarring into the ground and collapsing, which you can attribute back to, right, can we start these girls training proper deceleration mechanics and landing from an early age?
That is
And then, like I
phenomenal. That's
say,
the first time in my career, in anything, I have heard someone mention we need to train to slow down. I have,
it's crazy when you think about it, isn't it?
Mm.
yeah.
Well,
No,
the
but it makes
analogy,
so much sense when you say it. It
yeah,
makes so much sense. Even when you look at footballers, the most recents, they're chasing a ball and then a leg jars and all of a sudden the ACL is gone.
Yeah,
Who are
Liverpool player
doing
recently.
the Liverpool
Yeah.
player recently, Conor Bradley
yes,
just did it.
Conor
He
Bradley,
kicked
yeah,
the ball, fired it, and he's, God forbid, now he's always injured, but he's probably not the best example. But that's people who have this. But this is the first time, and all the coaching and stuff, I've heard somebody, and thankfully it's on this podcast, talk about deceleration
an
and training it.
exclusive, yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, and no, genuinely, it's
You need
it's
to put a
eye opening.
paywall up.
Never considered it. Yeah, get the paywall up. If you want to listen to this next bit, it's a tenner each.
But listen, it's vital, and the analogy I kind of use is like, look, we can get the car to speed up, go down the road. If there's no brakes, what's going to happen? You know, I know we love using cars as these kind of analogy when it comes to our health, but like they fit well and they're so easy to kind of, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. But if you look, say, like a lot of your guys who are listening, who are runners, you think about the kind of dynamic of running at the moment in Ireland, kind of post COVID. We've got these brilliant running clubs, and it's one of the great things to come from lockdown. But you're doing the same repetitive movement time and time again in the same plane of motion. And if you think of, like, say, your tendons, which you obviously need to be firing to help you move, like including the likes of a box drop, which is the same, your landing mechanics will go a long way. Just to, you think about like a pogo hop with your tendons up and down, it's going to protect the muscles, it's going to load, teach it to spring. There's so much value in that. And I think, Sean, you kind of mentioned sort of beforehand, like about that, the attitude to the gym if you're just a recreational runner. And there's three big fears when it comes to gym work. And it's generally like, it'll get me too big, it'll slow me down, or it'll injure me. And it's a bit like everything, you know, if you do too much of the wrong thing, you know, you'll end up injured. You'd want to be working, particularly from a starting point, like putting serious hours in under a machine to get ridiculously bulked up. Like, it's highly unlikely. And again, with the right work, the right dose, particularly if it's you're only a kind of a weekend warrior, like you're not going to do too much in terms of a workload to slow you down as such, like to turn you into a bodybuilder. So that's probably something maybe we as coaches need to do a little bit better, to give people that little bit of confidence. So, like, we're talking real basic stuff here. Sorry, this started off as deceleration, but it's probably a nice way to maybe expand on it to give people, you know, a little bit of clarity. If you think about going for your run, like, and I'm so guilty of this. Like, I'm just home from work, right? I go and get it done out the door. I'll just start off slowly and warm myself up. But if you think about, like, right, I'll just take 2 minutes, floor base, standing base, like literally, like glute bridges, a single leg glute bridge hold. So you're already engaging the glutes, the hammies. Yeah, you're doing an ISO just to hold. You're getting the tendons involved. Then, from that, if you get up, bodyweight squats, pogo hops up and down. Like, there's 4 really simple 3 minutes, and your body's just that little bit more primed. Your heart rate is up ever so slightly, and you're out the door. So your body's not in complete shock when you start booting down the road. And sorry, I hope that's not sounding patronising in any way. I'm just trying to give
David,
a
to
really
be honest with you,
simple advice.
the last time we had someone, a similar exercise physiologist on the podcast, talked about stuff. We spent 10 minutes talking about my calves and stuff. And I've talked about this after the podcast. I was like, well, I gotta get my run in afterwards. So I got this race this weekend. And I did none of that. And I know better. And I did none of that. I went running, and I was like, I think it was minute on, minute slow, minute medium, minute fast. By the 4th round of that, my calf went, and I haven't been 100% since. So I've heard it before, and I have not applied it. And sometimes you need a different message to have it applied. So hopefully this time it works for you. I'm not running this evening.
Sean has learned. This is a new Sean. He's going to start listening.
So what you're saying is spot on, because like, even like now, you're getting that stuff. Another way I think is just to get warm, to get out, to go for a run. You feel a bit warm after doing those exercises. But sometimes you do think, I'm late. I've left it too late to go for a run. Feck it. I'm getting out the door now. And you're doing your 8K easy pace, whatever it is. You're like, just pick it up a little bit, because I'll be done quicker. I'll be out of the cold, be warmed up quicker. I get out of there and on to the next thing, because I've got this coming up. And that is when you say these injuries do happen. And even just to go back a little bit for your deceleration, sorry to cut you off, that like the Dublin Marathon itself, when you leave Castleknock, you're going up and then you're flying down the hill, and it's that pounding on the knees. And what would help that? Yep. The box drops and stuff you just talked about, the pogo hops is bang on right there, and the money for the knees.
Yeah, again, and look, we're conscious, like most of us are, like you say, we're getting home from work, or you have kids, or this, that, and the other. Like, we're not talking about it 45-minute priming session
Mm.
to go out and smash your session. It's just, I'll just take those 2 or 3 minutes just to get ready. And like the little example I've given there, there's 100 of them, you know, there's different variations of that. And again, like you look at the time of year where firstly it's freezing out, it's damp. If you're coming home from work where you've been stuck in a car for an hour, or you're sitting at a desk for all day, and then you're completely rigid. So if you look at it almost like a cheat code, it's like, right, it might cost me 3 minutes, but it'll probably save me, 3 weeks of an injury down the line. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, you look like the most common injuries really with runners. You've got your Achilles, you plantar fascia underneath the foot, your patella tendon, and then your IT band. Like they're all tendons. Like it's so prepping the tendons, and particularly like if the marathon is your thing and you're building up to that mileage, um, never mind the fear of the gym of I might get injured because I'll be lifting heavy weight. Like if you go from 5 miles to 20 very, very quickly in a week, again, I'm just using numbers as an example. Like it's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
equivalent of it is that equivalent of going in and bench pressing bleeding 200 kilos when you never benched. Like, and if you think about it from that comparison, we're often quite good. People are generally quite good with their reps, their rest, their sets in the gym space. We're not often
Yeah.
that good with it when it comes to running. And if we had that attitude with it, we'd probably be in a better place. Like, and I know I certainly would. Like at this stage of kind of my career as such. But yeah, look, I hope that's in some way helpful. It's a tough one to kind of condense, I suppose. But but then the other side of it is maybe sometimes the most simple advice is often the best, isn't it?
It's funny though as well. Is it because, and you probably see it through the ages of athletes, is it because running is so accessible that we feel we should be able to, or a year ago I was able to do this, so I should be able to go out and bang out a 40, 50K week, and it's muscle pain and there's this element of kind of false toughness where, it's supposed to hurt, when you're doing
Mm.
thresholds. It's so you're gonna be tired. Is that what lures people up to the edge and then eventually tips them over it? Because obviously when it comes to weight, you either can or you can't. The barbell's gonna choke you, or it's something people carry a fear about. You don't necessarily want to do it, but with running, you kind of have this. I should be quicker. I can push another bit more. Is that what from all the athletes you look at is that kind of what guides you to the edge? Like, come on, it's fine until it's not.
Yeah. I suppose I'll go off my own experience is probably the best way to lead into that. And like I sort of joking to you lads there, like look at I'm running slow or whatever. If I look at my own training, say for last year's marathon, and my attitude was like I'm out the door. I've young kids. I don't have my lifestyle can't support training for a 3 hour marathon. Do you know what I mean? Like it just
Mm.
can't. There's too much I have to sacrifice. Um, and in the long run, it's not worth it. So my training was basically a gradual build up, and my mentality was do enough that I can get around this track without dying, basically. Like without, laughing, like, but without hopping
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
hammy or,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and that was kind of my approach. But I don't know. I think it depends. Like you say, and again, what I've said to you, not losing your why when it comes to, well, why do you run? Why are you in that running club? Well, it's a social element. Well, make sure it stays like that. Okay,
Yeah.
you've probably in with the right
Mm.
people. Um, are you in the right group of 3 or 4? That like I can push little and push often. I think
Mm.
when you can do that, you're in the right block. I think if it's a case of I have to stretch myself every night to the max, that's going to catch up with you 100%. But I think if you're in doubt or you're being swayed and thinking, oh, Jesus, will I do that? Will I push? Like, just bring it back to why you do it. That would be my kind of approach to that. Um, look, obviously marathons is it's the thing, isn't it? Like I've known plenty of people who I want to do my first marathon, and they're caught up in the hype, the start a bit of training like that. They look at their lifestyle, they look at everything else, and actually, do you know what? This probably isn't right for me. I'll stick to the 10Ks. And you know what? I'm actually getting more enjoyment out of that. Like, so yeah, look, it's an individual piece, isn't it? And I appreciate, like, if you're in that bubble of runners
Mm.
and other people are doing other things, it's easy to get swayed. But yeah, look, I think maybe just remind yourself of why you do it, and that'll generally guide you in the right direction as to, right, where can I push, and why should I push as well.
For someone listening that's like that, they are in that marathon bubble and they have, 8, 10, 12 weeks before getting in. Let's say 16 or so weeks before marathon, but they're hearing they need to do more gym work. Is it too late? Is it too late to get it to build up the gym with the marathon if they're close to that, or do they need to use time like now for like 4 or 6 months to do that if they're going to do Dublin Marathon, for example? Say you need to get that base in for a while, and then with that base, then start the marathon training.
Yeah, it's definitely not too late. I mean, what are we now? We're the end of January. You've plenty of time, and like you say, particularly when you're running is your number one, you want to be a runner. You don't need to be in the gym, 2 hours at a time. So it's definitely not too late. If you're brand new to the gym, like you say, you start small. Like, you don't have to go in there and rip the place up with your first high rocks. As soon as your membership lands, like,
We
take it
tried that,
easy.
didn't work.
Yeah. Well, like, you look at your basics, like, you bring it back to basics, like your compounds, like, and the basics of functional movement, like, and look, that is why high rocks works. But if you're going in and you're covering yourself with a squat, a hinge, a brace, a carry, a rotation, a lunge, like, if you're covering that in your session, and that could be all body weight to start with. So body weight squat against the box, a walk and lunge with your hands up in the air or just where to keep your balance. A double leg RDL where you're just, good mornings, your hands are down, you're back up. And what's really good about that is you can slow that movement where you're feeling the hips and I'm not curling my back, I'm engaging my hips. You can add to that, right? Foot strength, really important. Do the RDL on your feet, on your heels are elevated. Do your walk and lunge with your heels elevated. Do your deep squat with your heels elevated. So it's just different ways. How can I save time? On my last set, right, little bit of foot strength, I'll get my heels up off the floor. Your brace.
What's that doing, David? Sorry, I've heard before the goblet squat for the heels elevated will be more for the front of the legs, the quads, but for the RDLs and stuff like that, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so sorry, I don't mean kind of perched on a block. I mean literally in a calf
on your
raised
toes.
position. So
Okay.
yeah, sorry, I apologize. Yeah, I know what you mean. If you were teaching a squat, you could do your elevated heels on a block.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. I mean,
No, you're good.
literally like a floating heel. And
Right.
it's just a really, it's a good bargaining tool to kind of get a bit of footwork in. So it's just strength on the foot. And particularly in that,
Yeah, I'm with you now.
particularly say with a lunge, it's a movement in it as well. So you're also coordination and balance. And then same with the RDL, like, you're literally coming to face the floor where you have to keep your balance. But I promise you, lads, you will feel that around the edges of your feet and that by rep 6 or 7. And again, I'm just conscious that, like, we're talking about maybe people who have jobs and everything else going on. So it's, how can I squeeze all this in, like, and not be, like you say, 2 hours in a gym? And sorry, I think the other ones I mentioned, it was like of a carry where you're literally just carrying weights up and down the Astro, and then a brace. Then is obviously the likes of your plank, side planks, things like that. And then what we've mentioned there, you've got your box jumps, so a little bit of vertical power. Broad jumps are excellent, just power over the ground. Good measurement for broad jumps. If you can match your height with a broad jump, that's a really, really good foundation of power. And again, I think what's good is, particularly if you're in a commercial gym, like you say, most of them are kind of redesigned now for that high rock setup where you have the space to sort of do things like that. And then, yeah, like the other one, the box drops and a few pogo hops. And look, I say that I'm generalizing a lot of this stuff, and I probably just have a beginner in mind. If you start getting into the nitty gritty, like, it obviously things will get a little bit more individualized, a little bit more specific around kind of your training age, your injury history, what else you have going on. There's different kind of isometrics that you'd probably integrate as well. That'd certainly help because they're high tension, but there's good recovery. So the likes of a wall sit, basically excellent for kind of obviously your quads, your patella. They're absolutely nasty at the time, but you're not left walking like a crab for 3 days afterwards. So yeah, look, there's so much there, lads, and I'm just conscious that maybe if I keep spewing out stuff, it's probably not going to be helpful for anyone. But look, it's not too late. Like 2 sessions a week, literally 20 minutes, and
Brilliant.
you think about what the information overload, but like it's an opportunity to use the internet, YouTube, like beginners bodyweight work for runners. It might not be perfect, but it'll still be better than, as we've just said, I'll just trash out, a 60% increase on my mileage in a week without any kind of preparation or recovery. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Even that, because a lot of people go into this with all or nothing background, and then someone from your level of S&C going, only two times a week, 20 minutes to get started, to build into it is where you need to go from there, and keeping it simple and keeping the basic, because like you said, the basics, they work. They're there for a reason. You're hitting every body part there, and you're slowly building. You don't need to go in and start doing all these advanced things you might see online in some places, stuff like that. Keeping the beginner and stuff, it's like that Kobe Bryant analogy, where after you get every game he keeps hitting 200 free throws or whatever it is, and it's just like, why is he just doing the basic stuff? Because you perfect the basics, it can lead to all sorts of great things from there.
Yeah, and I think a good example is when you see somebody. I see it's very common again. I'm using kind of the Gaelic footballers or soccer players as an example. If they're out in a long-term injury, they come back, and you can see very clearly that extra bit of spring, and you're like, it's because you did the basics. Do you know the stuff you skipped in the warm up before you got injured? Like,
Yeah.
But genuinely, it's because the stuff that becomes so kind of mechanical and routine that you're almost half-arsed, and suddenly it's all scaled back. You're one-on-one or you're on your own. You're absolutely nailing your basics. And that shows kind of the progress in it, like. But yeah, look, again, that's, I'd be confident the saying what I've given you there is a good start point, particularly for people who, have that little bit of fear of the gym, or the gym isn't there. I'm not too comfortable here. And what I'd say to that is not to worry, because no one cares, and everybody's just focused on themselves. Like, they really are, so don't fear it.
David, if people wanted to progress that little bit further, and I've seen your websites, you've got different programs and stuff like that, how can they do that through you?
Yeah, look, so you said I'm very lucky working with a lot of different levels and different sports, like. But look, I think anyone coming to me, like, it's not just grand, there you go. It's important that you're speaking to people. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is just getting a broader understanding of where they're at in their life and everything else they have going on. If you're dealing with a professional athlete, yeah, okay, that's all they're dealing with. They're young, this is their job. Perfect. We have, a lot of kind of leeway and a lot of space to work with. But like you say, if we're dealing with a mother of 3 kids who work 60 hours a week, it's going to look very, very different. So look, that's the starting point with me for anybody who's maybe looking to add that little bit of gym work in, or a little bit of mechanics work. It's just, let's get the big picture, see where you're at, see what your goals are. And if I'm the right man, I'd absolutely delighted to help anyone who wants to progress. And then equally then, like, there's people that come to me and I'll refer them on to someone else, because I know, actually, Sean's a better fit here, so let's send you down there. Like, but look, I try and treat
Hope you're
people
not talking about this, Sean. Jesus, David.
with a dodgy calf.
I don't think there's enough hours in the week for you to bang sense into this fella anyway.
I can tell you what not to do, because I've made all the mistakes. Don't do
But
the
he's
same, do
learning.
as I do.
He's learning. Go on, promise, David, you'll do better. Go on, promise him.
I'll
in front of
try.
everyone,
I
all
promise
the
to do
listeners.
better, David. I'll do more glute bridges before I go for a run in the mornings.
But yeah, listen, that's my approach, lads. Just try and keep it as individual as you can. 1 week could look different to the next. It's you've got to work around people's schedules, people's energy levels, and everything else they have going on. But like I said, there's always something you can work with.
Dave, it's been absolutely brilliant listening to you on the podcast. We will have your Instagram at performance_doc on the podcast notes, as well as your website. Absolutely brilliant listening to you. I'm looking forward to see you in the Dublin Marathon again this year. So delighted you got a ticket for that. And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. And myself, David, and Eric, take care.
Thank you.